Thank you. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to our Horizen Weekly Insider number 59. This is the first Weekly Insider that we're going to be performing on Mondays from this point onwards. Today is September the 28th, and happy Monday to you all. We're live now, as you know, on YouTube and Discord, and this call will also be available for you to check out later in our Horizen podcast. Also, please remember to be asking your questions so we can have our good Q&A session at the end. Without further ado, I'll pass now the word to Luca to give us the engineering updates.
Thank you, Angie. And excited for this first Weekly Insider on Monday. Together with me, there is Alberto. Hi, Alberto.
Hello, everybody.
So we are now ready to provide engineering updates. Alberto, could we start with the main chain? We have a lot of topics to cover. Start with the main chain.
Okay, sure. Okay, so currently we're reviewing the changes that we made for the next Zendy release. And in particular, we started also looking at the TLS improvements. So we are in this phase of reviewing, and everything seems fine. Apart some small changes that were requested, and also part of them are already done. So the next days are going to be focused on finishing this review on the main chain side. Okay, switching on the SDK. We are still working on the Spark Merkle tree integration, and in particular the changes that are needed in the mempool for this, addition. We've also been working on a random issue that prevented the sidechain forger node to issue a block in time. In particular, we identified a problem in the WebSocket communication channel. And I mean the channel between the sidechain node and the main chain node. And this channel is used for perform the communication about, for example, main chain blocks and all the events that a sidechain forger node is interested to receive. So the issue in particular was related to a timeout happening when receiving block information that were needed for calculating which main chain block references to include in a sidechain node that has to be forged. So we identified the issue, and in particular was a performance issue between in the retrieval of this information. So we have restructured the requests to have a more efficient communication. So, for example, if we need to have the list of block headers, we introduce a specific request that will return directly the list of headers without having to request the full blocks. And also, we are also working on a more low level, on the low level implementation to make the communication faster. So I think that this will be resolved very soon. Okay. Another thing related to the SDK and Zendo sidechain CryptoLib in particular, we introduced in the sidechain in Zendo sidechain CryptoLib another library that introduced a dependency that created an issue on the Windows platform. So we have identified it, and we have identified also what are the dynamic libraries that are needed. So we are going to ship also these libraries with the Zendo sidechain CryptoLib on Windows. Okay, and the last thing about the SDK, we have also identified an inconsistency between main chain and side chain on the sidechain transaction commitment tree. This was a quite tricky one, and in particular was related on how we order the Merkle root of sidechain transaction commitment tree in a single block. So if we have more sidechain that are mentioned on a single main chain block, these sidechains have two different sidechain transactional commitment trees, and the list of roots of these trees has to be part of, let me say, of the match blockation. Let me simplify in this way. So we have, I mean, the kind of ordering was the same between the sidechain and the main chain. There was still a problem about the endianness that was considered differently between the sidechain and the main chain. So long story short, we identified what was the inconsistency, and we are currently working to fix it. It should be a quite easy fix. Okay, let's switch to the proving system. We have been working on the let me say, analyzing the performances of the proving system, and in particular, let me say, all the issues related to the recursive proof composition. So we made other very intense deep dive sessions, and these led to an interesting result. Also, we were worried about let me say, a sort of a strange number in terms of amount of density that led to more, let me say, poorer performances. So now we identified why we had this high level of densities, and currently we are making some adjustment to having a much lower number of densities that could lead to a much higher performance. It's always regarding performances that is the key point for the proving system. We are running measurements for the multiscalar multiplication and also working on performance improvements on that area. And always related to multiscalar multiplication, we are currently setting up some GPUs to start testing, let me say, on using them to improve the performances on the multiscalar multiplication. And last topic that I would mention today is regarding the paper and the latest decentralized actors reward model. The review is almost finished. There is just one last thing that arises on Friday that we want to solve and I mean, describe better in the document. And so I think
that was it.
That was it. Yes.
Okay. Quite a lot of stuff. Of course, we are here. Should you have any question at the end related to all what was just said. And Alberto was speaking about improvements on the main chain side. These, of course, may be or will be part of the next ZenD release. I've had a session with Angie also last week to define the contents for the communication, but Angie is leading that, so I will pass it to her now so she can speak about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca. Yeah, so just a quick announcement for the first round of notifications for ZenD. Those are going to be performed later today by me, and the contents of this next release are still being defined. But in the meantime, we will just announce it to our partners for them to be aware and start scheduling the upgrade accordingly. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we conclude the engineering updates. So let's continue with Ruben to give us the Helpdesk report.
Hey guys, Ruben here. Happy Monday to everyone. I will be giving you today the report. So this ticket count has gone down this week, less than half compared to last week's ticket count. In the last 7 days, we received a total of 56 issues, in which of them 73% comes from the faucet, and the remaining 27% is described on the bar plot below the pie chart. So on the faucet side, the most common issue was people using VPN, and we just kindly instruct them to disconnect the connection to the VPN when using the faucet. And on the language side, so our majority of our tickets were in English, and second place, as usual, has been taken by the Spanish language. On the customer satisfaction side, we got this week a total of 4.2 out of 5 from 23 users. And that's it from my side. Thank you guys and have a nice start of the week. Back to you, Angie.
Thank you, Ruben. Let's continue with Jonathan for the growth updates.
Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. I'll go through some of the metrics on the growth side. So we've seen about, in the last 7 days, in the last week, we've seen about a 1% growth in our mailing list. We've seen about a 1.1% growth in wallet downloads, which is pretty cool. We've seen a 6.2% increase in active users on the faucet, which is really nice to see. Really interesting fact, 80% of the faucet users have linked 3 social media accounts. So we have done an amazing job. Well, not me, but Gustavo and Tuan and the team have done an amazing job of pretty much blocking all malicious traffic on the faucet. And not only that, but we have so many users that are authenticating and proving that they are actually real people. So 80% is a huge number, really cool. We also have 100 new users from last week in the last 7 days that are hodling 10 Zen or more. So 100 new users that are hodling 10 Zen or more. So it's a 7% increase in 10 plus Zen hodlers, which is pretty cool. And we are averaging about 350 referrals to the faucet per day. So right on track. That's it for me. Gustavo, do you have anything?
Nothing today. Happy Monday, guys. Back to you, Angie.
Thank you, guys. Let's continue with Rowan for the BDN operations updates.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Just a brief update from me today. I just wanted to give a shout out to the guys from Whitebit. I did an AMA with them just the tail end of last week, which was good fun. So if anyone hasn't seen that, you'll find it in pretty much all of our social channels. Beyond that, I'll be helping Angie with the ZenD updates a little bit later on today. And I am going to resist the urge to talk about what I've been teasing for a long time now, because unfortunately, this is yet another week without an update. So I believe we're very close. I think we're technically complete. We're working now on user interface before we kind of do the final polish and then can update properly. So I'll leave it there for now. Vano, if you want to jump in with an update, please feel free to do so.
Hello, everyone. I'm continuing my work to improve our internal analytics that can be used to help with our internal KPIs, and the work there is progressing, and also looking where we can add value with our existing partners to improve our integrations there. That's all from me. Back to you, Angie.
Thank you. Next, we have Lucy with the marketing updates.
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. So as we are at the end of September, I'd like to share some key metrics. So we now have over 1,000 members on our early adopt program, and almost 1,400 developers registered on HDE, our developer and bounty platform. So both programs were only launched 2.5 months ago. So we now have a total of over 2,200 developers signed up. So I'm really excited to see so many developers interested in participating in our tech development and contributing to the Horizen ecosystem. And from last week, we see almost 4% growth in our developer community and over 25% increase in the number of people who signed up to watch our most recent Zendu webinar just from 6 days ago. So I'm really excited to see that. And then also move to the social media. We saw an average of 4% social media follow increase across 3 of our main channels, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And keep in mind that the benchmark is pretty high already. So for a even just a single-digit percentage is still a pretty large number. So happy to see the steady growth in our general community size. And just a reminder, the next quarterly live stream on YouTube is next Wednesday, October the 7th. So please mark your calendar for it. We will have a lot of exciting news to share. And lastly, we are working on some really exciting and big partnership announcements this week and next few weeks. So please definitely stick around and don't miss them. That's it from me. Back to you, Angie.
Thank you, Lucy. Rosario, would you like to share any updates from product and engineering?
Sure. It's great to hear those developer community growth numbers. Now our challenge is to get developers to take additional actions and start building. And now that it's been a few weeks after the Zendu webinar, I think it'll be a good idea to get a survey out. So for September, for the SDK downloads, we have 69 for the month of September so far. But these numbers also, just for full transparency, also include internal downloads. So if our team is working on downloads, those are also included in here. Interestingly, we had Rolf's presentation. He had a brief last week, and after his presentation, we saw 13 downloads in a single day, which was great. And after the webinar, we had 17 downloads. I see from one of the questions that from the community on our questions here that was asked on Menti, questions about keeping nodes up. So I think that's a common problem that some of our developer users may be having. And Luigi is actively working on finding a configuration and refining the documentation to make sure that the developers don't run into this issue with nodes being up. So currently we have 4 active sidechains, and we are monitoring those and seeing how long they stay up and making sure that it's there's nothing on our end, the documentation end, that we can do to refine those. In terms of the SDK as a product, Maurizio continues refining the documentation, and there were some PRs last week. And this week he'll be dedicating a bit of time and working with Paolo, who I've introduced before, but he's he was working on Sphere previously, and now he's going to be working on the SDK and different tools just to augment the engineering team. And they will be writing a sidechain extension chapter, and that's going to be, or they've written it, and it'll be ready for our Mac review tomorrow. And Paolo and Marco are both experimenting with the SDK, and it's important. It's really important that they're going through this because they were not part of the SDK development team. So they're going through the same process that any external developer will do. So this is going to be huge for our developer user experience and refining the documentation and identifying any tool sets that are needed. So already Paolo has identified some improvements to the Lambo registry, which PRs were already submitted and ready for, some have been reviewed by the SDK team already. And he's also added a test framework for the Lambo registry, which is going to be reviewed. And it seems like the SDK engineers would like to have a separate repository for this. So those details are still being worked. And then from a community perspective, this is a pivot to anything product related, but just wanted to highlight that we had our first Zen improvement proposal, Horizen improvement proposal by Trollolino. And the primary proposal that Trollolino had included is that changes to treasury allocation, which we will, a lot of us, the team members have reviewed it. We just need to provide a formal response this week. That is it for now, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosario. Rolf, would you like to add any updates or comments?
Yeah, thanks, Angie. I went through a lot of the information that we've provided on the sidechain SDK. I watched the tutorials, read through the documentation, and I'm really impressed by what we have so far on the SDK. I didn't realize that the SDK, the development in Java would be pretty straightforward. I like how it wraps all the back-end stuff of building the sidechain node. So then I was thinking, okay, well, I can do a little bit of Java development. What are some basic things that can take that people have developed in Java programs and work to make sidechain simulations? And that requires kind of a different thought, because instead of a database, it's a blockchain. And so I'm sure a lot of the new developers are going through those different types of things. And then, of course, in the development process, we're going to want to simulate it. And we do have a way to simulate the software. So I guess I want to say that it really looks like we're making a lot of progress, and we've already done a lot on the SDK and showing people how to do it. The documentation is, there's a great framework for the documentation, and it's continuing to improve. So well done so far, and this is really exciting. I like it.
Thank you, Rolf. And now let's continue with Rob for the final part.
Rolf, I love those comments. Spot on. And okay, so on my end, I've recently, I don't know the right word, terrible on my grammar, but I recently partook in a couple of online conferences and gave a couple of talks. One was Blockchain UA, and I spoke about Zendu and applications, and with a focus on why developers should consider building in the Horizen ecosystem. So that's out there now for people to watch. And I also did a presentation at LiveChain, which is put on by Waxman PR, where I gave lessons learned from operating in the blockchain world over the last 3 years and gave advice to entrepreneurs in the space. So please check them out if any topics interest you. Now, what I want to do real quick is review, I'll talk about the main organization level KPIs that we're going to be tracking, and I want feedback from the community on what you guys think about them. So what we'll do is I'll also have to write up some documentation where I describe the KPIs and why we're tracking them. But just to give you the categories, the main things we're looking at, and not to give you the numbers yet, because the numbers, I would say, are still a little fuzzy. We have to do a better job of justifying why we're choosing these numbers. And so we're not just taking them out of thin air. And again, the basis here is we know that this is just kicking off the process of doing key performance indicator tracking. It's not meant to be perfect, and it is absolutely meant to get feedback from the community. And then more importantly, or not more importantly, but importantly, feedback just from the real world on seeing how we perform and how performance and actually operating is going to inform the things that we're tracking. So not to belabor this anymore, the main categories are, we will be looking at the top line number of transactions that are broadcast over the network every month. And this will be aggregating transactions that happen on the main chain and then also sidechain transactions. So we will be looking at the total volume of transactions. So ostensibly, this means the amount of actual things that people are doing with our blockchain and with just the blockchain sidechain protocol. So for now, the sidechain protocol is operating on testnet, or this parallel testnet. So we will be tracking that, and we'll be adding those numbers to what we see on the public explorers for the mainnet. Number two, we're going to look at the number of sidechain design partners. So these are actual companies or projects or just other groups that are working with us hand in hand to launch their own blockchains, launch their own sidechains. So we do have a target for these, and we already have some partners that, again, we've been talking for a while, just waiting for these announcements to go live. One, we're just waiting for the media company to broadcast the announcement, and then we can actually talk about it publicly. But we do already have design partners, and we're targeting a certain number of them by the end of the year. We'll be targeting a certain number of them every month. And we're going to have a very aggressive goal of getting people to work with us to build their own sidechains. Then we're going to be looking at the nitty-gritty, and for now it's going to be on that parallel testnet where the sidechain system's operating. We're going to be looking at the total number of sidechains that have been initiated, and then we'll be looking at the total active sidechains that are operating on that testnet. So we will be tracking these metrics, so we have some idea of do people care about what we've already released, with the SDK, and are they actually using it to do things? And of course, it's on a testnet, so these aren't going to be production level things, but we need to make sure that people actually care about what we're building and we're driving interest in it, and then getting the feedback, importantly, the feedback, so that we can inform what we're building to make people care about it more. So these are some of the metrics we're tracking. And then the last metric is going to be the total number of monthly users. And this is aggregating users across a whole bunch of our media assets. So everything from website visits to social media, follows, engagements, mailing lists, subscribers, people that use the faucet, for instance, the number of Sphere downloads as well, just things that we can actually measure at a very high level and in aggregate. So we're just going to have some baseline number, and we're going to track apples to apples over time to see how that number grows. So these are the main categories, and we will be releasing the actual numbers. So next week, what I'd like to do is have the divisions talk about their own KPIs. So these are the organization-wide KPIs that we're going to be looking at the big picture of, are we performing or not? But each division is going to have their own KPIs that they're tracking and working towards to feed in specifically into one or more of these organization KPIs. So they will present to you next week, and hopefully this will give you a better picture of what's going on. And then what I'd like to do is actually write up a blog post that presents the table of the KPIs and rationale for why we chose these, especially so that once we get this in writing, we can get some feedback from the community on it. So hopefully that makes sense. And if nothing else, at least now we have a standard over which we can measure ourselves over time. Okay, so what else? As always, we're trying to just refine how we operate as an organization. So one thing that I've noticed is we're churning out an enormous volume of work, and you can hear this in all of the Weekly Insiders, or go back and listen to them as podcasts or on YouTube. And there's just an enormous volume of work that's being churned out all the time. Every week we have updates. Every month, every quarter, you can aggregate them and see just the enormous amount of work that we're doing. But the big question is it all useful? Does it all matter? So there are different ways to measure that. And one, if we were to look at just the market price, the answer would be no, probably not. We're probably doing a lot that the market doesn't care about. And that's okay, because we're not managing the project to the market specifically, but it is at least an aggregator for performance where the broader world is giving us feedback on what we're doing. So again, I'm not saying we're going to manage to what the market's telling us, but we do need to pay attention and get some feedback. So we're just trying to improve what we're doing and moving this, consolidating the team calls that we were doing twice a week to once a week, and then broadcasting it live that once a week is part of this effort to just get more efficient at what we're doing. And let's see. So ongoing priorities, and I'll just list some of the big ones here. The developer focus is still priority number one, and you heard from Lucy that we have over 2,200 developers registered with us in some capacity. These are either on HDE or with Heap. And now, like Rosario said, we need to actually get them to do useful things and get them to participate in tangible ways, not just signing up for information, but then to take that information and translate it into products, translate it into sidechains, translate it into completed HDE tasks, and so forth. So one thing that I really like that I saw last week that's in this vein of trying to understand more how we can engage with our developers, Manon did an awesome interview that she published on YouTube, and I highly recommend everyone check it out. It's with Xavier and Pontus. So Xavier's interview is in French, but she had a translation on the bottom, so thank you for that. It was fantastic. And Pontus' interview was very good. And I have to say his avatar in the interview just cracked me up. So guys, check it out if you can. But the point here is we need to do more of this. So we need more dev interviews. We need a better understanding of what our developers care about so that we can engage with them in a meaningful way and make sure that what we're doing actually matters to them. So Product team is the other big focus, and product team formation was, it's work in progress, but just launching the product team, I think, is a game changer for us, because now we have an action arm that will be actioning partnerships and actually building real time with clients and with partners. And this is what Rosario's been giving you guys updates on weekly. And we already have, Paolo's already been working on a tokenization module or tokenization sidechain, so that other developers can now take this and learn from it and launch their own tokenization applications or applications that require tokens. We've already kicked off our first big design partnership on building something for a partner. Again, hopefully that PR goes live this week and we can actually talk about it. And Horizen Labs, which is lending the bulk of the technical team to the product team, is also in process of hiring more developers to join the team and a product manager. The core tech continues to develop. This is obviously an extremely high priority for us. And in the near term, you're going to be presented with some preliminary performance numbers for the proving system. Alberto alluded to this, that we've been going through some performance tests. And I think it's extremely important to actually divulge the results of these tests in the community so that we can all get excited about the results, because the results are actually fantastic. And finally, we're always in the process of rethinking messaging. And I heard some feedback last week, and I've heard this just kind of intermittently over time. The question is, are we getting too corporate? And as the nonprofit foundation, we for sure organize like a company. We for sure operate like a company. And the point of that was because we need to actually use resources efficiently. We don't want to just waste resources. And if we say we're going to do something, we have to actually execute on it. And that's why we organize the way we do. But it's a really fair point of maybe we're getting a little bit too corporate, and maybe we need to think about relaxing that a bit if we can. So I'll tell you just some thoughts that popped into my head is I still think that we're not engaging enough with the community on governance. And I just want to say thank you to Trollolino for the Zen app that you provided. So we will respond, like Rosario said, but things like this are huge. So I do have comments for you, Trollolino, on the Zen app. It's basically reapportioning the block reward in different ways. My hunch, and this will be, I'll tell everyone now, my vote is I think we need a voting system for macro level changes like that. Because I don't like the idea of making big changes unilaterally that could have economic impact, like big economic impact for people, especially like adverse economic impact for people. So those are things that I try not to make decisions on unilaterally. And guys, I'm really dying for this voting system, because we really need to be able to pull sentiment from the community directly so that it's not us here making unilateral changes. That's why the things that we do as an organization tend to focus on actually delivering technology, and we try not to change the rules of the game, like the rules of the system. We try not to make these types of changes because we don't yet have a credible voting system. So if we do a community poll, that's not a credible voting system, because you always have poll construction and sample bias, and you want to make sure you have a representative sample of people that actually care about the ecosystem, and you don't want to cluster sentiment in a particular stakeholder group. You want to have wide disperse sentiment aggregation across the community. We don't have this yet, and that's why as an organization we tend to steer away from these macro changes. That's not to say that we don't make them in times of crisis if we're forced to, but that's just my sentiment. The Zen app is fantastic though, because it actually opens some really good questions, and I just love the fact that someone's actually using the process. So we will respond formally, and we'll provide feedback, and the community will be able to provide feedback directly. This is the first and probably most important step in community governance, is to actually have these types of open dialogues. So I'm really happy, Trollolino, thank you again for actually posting that. And again, finally, I'm going to say that our core messaging I still think needs to be clearer, cleaner, and just convey exactly why what we're doing is so important. And one fact I'll leave you guys with of why I'm saying this is Horizen is now truly a competitor and a peer to two other projects, Polkadot and Cosmos, that are worth $1 billion to $4 billion in market cap. And we are exactly in this space competitively. And maybe our SDK and documentation isn't as refined yet. It's still a work in progress. But our technology itself is extremely interesting at the core technology level. And our organization has really strong value propositions to add to the technology that I think are compelling. And we're starting to see partners start to join our ecosystem because of it. Now, the market doesn't quite understand this, and I think it's always a reminder that we need to continue to refine our messaging of exactly what we're doing and why, and why people should care. So anyway, that's it for now. I'll stop here. I know we're a little bit over time. We'll open it to Q&A.
Hey, Bob, I know we're about to do the Q&A, but when you were talking, it made me think about something regarding the community. And I'm not looking for an answer now, but this might be something to think about, is when we first started off, we wanted to focus on the development of the side chains. And so we figured it was kind of like more trouble than it was worth to ask for community developers to assist on the main chain. But now that we've got side chains and a solid SDK, it may be, I think, worthwhile to evaluate, should we start encouraging community involvement in writing side chains and do that in the form of bounties of small milestones, of side chains, demo side chains, different things like that. Because sometimes you go down a path where you just go down that path for so long, and then it's like, hey, now that we have something different, maybe we start thinking about, because I bet there's a bunch of people in the community that would either fund development of sidechain applications or would want to develop sidechain applications on their own. And maybe we work that into HDE, or maybe we work it into something else. But I bet we could get a lot of sidechains going if we pay for them.
Ralph, I was just going to say, I love that. Totally agree. And I think HDE is at least something we have right now we can start loading tasks into.
Because like Barry mentioned, he would fund a sidechain for a lottery. We could at least simple things like that. I don't know.
Thank you. So actually, that was one of the questions. So I'm going to take first the first two. So the first one is, after DeFi booming on Ethereum platform, will there be a project update in Zen Horizen?
So yes, we do have a couple of finance partners right now that we're just, the PRs are loaded and ready to publish. So we're just waiting to do that. We're waiting for the official publication of the announcements before we actually talk about them. But yes, absolutely, we're focusing a bit of effort into that very important space.
Okay, the next question is single address staking currently available? Where can I learn how to use this new feature?
Yeah, Alan, please.
Yes, it is available on Supernodes, and there is some information in our online documentation. I'll have to get a link to that, or if somebody has that. But we are putting some more information together on it to try to increase the detail in the documentation. But you can already do the staking and the stacking on those stakes and the individual or the multiple payouts on Supernodes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it says the sidechain stops if it's not able to create a block when it's supposed to. Does multiple sidechain nodes reduce the chance of sidechain stopping?
I know the perfect guy to answer it is Alberto still on the line?
I was thinking about Luca.
Luca is not online anymore, so.
No, that's very joking. Okay. Okay. If we are talking about the issue that we discovered, I mean, that would not have mitigated the issue. So the issue was, in particular. Okay, first, we are currently running the sidechain nodes on a isolated testnet network that has a very few miners. So it can happen that also the number of blocks mined can really vary a lot faster. So you can find a lot of main chain blocks mined all at once, or having some period with a lower rate of blocks. This for sure could have increased the chance to see this issue. Second, it could be related also to, for example, if you stop a node and then you have to start it again and start forging, and obviously if there are less nodes, there are less chances that there are other nodes available to forge that particular slot, but for the next slot should be fine. In any case, this was an issue, let me say, we can say a bug that prevented a node to parse and get the main chain blocks necessary for producing the main chain block references to be included in a sidechain block in time. And the issue was, so, I mean, if a sidechain node, a sidechain forger missed the slot, the next forger, the next slot would have had the same issue or even worse if you had more main chain blocks to be parsed. Okay, but this was an issue related to, let me say, a wrong design in the request that was performed between the sidechain node and the main chain node. So instead of asking for just the headers, they were asking for each a list of IDs, of block IDs, and then for each block ID asking for the whole main chain block, and then from the main chain block extracting the header information. As you can see, if the sidechain node was a little bit behind, it had to ask a lot of iterate, let me say, through all these lists, ask each main chain block, exchange this whole main chain block within the WebSocket, and also we had also an issue about, let me say, each request had also 100 millisecond overread. So as you can see, the time for process the main chain block references could at some point could have been very high and get worse and worse and worse if no sidechain blocks were emitted. So the fix is quite easy, and so I mean, and this will not happen again.
So Alberto, I was thinking about this, that it's important for the sidechain nodes to be able to get answers back from main chain nodes relatively quickly. And it just so happens that we test the performance of our main chain nodes on super nodes, and they only get rewarded if they can, produce block information within a certain period of time. So that really fits nicely together. So it sounds like it should work a lot better not better, but it should work consistently on the main chain if the side chain nodes are using super nodes to get their block information from. Does that?
I think that there are two aspects. Okay, first, having the network delivering quickly blocks, and for sure the super nodes actors contribute to make it quicker and more reliable. And from the sidechain node perspective, from the forger, I mean, and also we have to also distinguish these two things. Let me say, I want to be part of the sidechain network, but I don't want to forge blocks. So we designed the consensus protocol inside the sidechain in a way that doesn't oblige a sidechain node to have a communication with a main chain node. So a regular sidechain node can just follow the sidechain network without having to follow the main chain network. A different thing is if you wanna be a sidechain forger, or better, maybe, but I think it's worth to mention. Let me say, you can gain reward from the sidechain in two ways. First, being a sidechain forger, so you emit blocks, and for doing this, you need to be, you need to have, or better, no, I think it's, let me say, it's mandatory almost mandatory to have a main chain node. So if you are a sidechain forger, you will typically have a main chain node in your network, in your local network, and your sidechain node will be connected to this local main chain node through a WebSocket channel. And this WebSocket channel was the channel that had, let me say, some performance issue. So was not related, the performance issue was not related to the regular main chain network, main chain channel, was related to this local WebSocket channel. And we're using this WebSocket channel for let me say, first, for having a local fast connection. Second, because there are some private, let me say, and more security sensitive. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, cool. Someone here told me that they cannot hear me. Okay, so I was saying the sidechain forger can be connected. I mean, it's mandatory if that is connected to a main chain node through this WebSocket channel. And this WebSocket channel must be, let me say, local. Also because this WebSocket channel is also used for submitting the certificate to main chain. So if you want to be a forger, you also want to be a certificate submitter. A certificate submitter is an entity in the sidechain network that is entitled to submit the certificate. And also, let me say, and you will see more details when the paper is going to be published, you're going to be rewarded in a decentralized way for being a certificate submitter. So, long story short, when you want to be a certificate submitter, you will, to submit a certificate, you will pay the fees for the certificate to be included in a main chain block. And you pay by yourself. But the sidechain, when this certificate will be synced back, will pay you what you paid plus your reward. So it's even incentivized, let me say, this work of submitting the certificate. Why I'm mentioning this? Because if the WebSocket channel is responsible to trigger and the creation of the certificate and the submission of the certificate and paying for the submission of the certificate, this means that your node must have the private keys for paying the fees for submitting the certificate. So this channel has to be, let me say, private, must not be, let me say, open to the public, because otherwise this channel could be used for making bad things, let me say. So in this main chain node will be your main chain node with your, let me say, maybe some Zen just to pay the fees if you want to be a certificate submitter, and the WebSocket channel will be used also for that. I was mentioning that there was a third option, and this is the second option if you want to get reward from the sidechain, and is delegating another sidechain forger with your stake. So the consensus allows you to, if you have some coins in the sidechain, to delegate. So you take your stake and you lock temporarily, and you can unlock it whenever you want. You lock it and you delegate another entity to let me say, have to use your stake power, let me say, to have more chances to be eligible as a forger. So in this way, you will have a way to be rewarded, let me say, to use your stake to be rewarded in the sidechain, even without being a forger. So you delegate someone else to be a forger. I mean, sorry, maybe it was a bit long. But
No, I think a lot of people are interested in the details of these things that are being designed. And, from my point, I like to think about the hardware that we're going to need and the different connections that are going to be required. And then, for making that certificate, sounds computationally intensive. And you'd mentioned in the past that possibly GPUs would be used for doing certificate. And so I don't want to extend this not much further, but sounds like I might need to figure out a way to put some GPU cards in the server to be able to optimize the certificate creation.
Yeah, that's a great point, Rolf. Absolutely. Currently, we're especially working on evaluate. Okay, there is a specific operation that is very, very expensive during the proof creation. Is called multiscalar exponentiation. I mean, and this is something that could be, let me say, the performances can be improved by using GPU. So currently, we are looking at the real benefit in terms of improvement by using the GPU, but also working on many other ways for improving it in terms of, let me say, algorithm for improving the calculation of this. So this is quite a crucial part. Also, these, the whole discussion, the discussion we are having also includes affect the cost per transaction. We have to always remember that our sidechain is not issuing any kind of new coins, so we don't have Coinbase, and for this reason, we have to rely on a rewarding scheme that doesn't use them, and so and for this reason it's also a bit complex. But you will see the full model later. But the discussion we were having about the usage of the GPU and the complexity of the multiscalar exponentiation and how to improve this have impacts on the fees that has to be paid per transaction. We had some estimate in the past days, but currently are very, 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 let me say, draft, and I will not share. But what I can share with you is, they seems very, very, very promising. But we will provide, let me say, better details when we will have more fixed numbers.
Okay, so I know we're a little bit over time, but I'm seeing here one comment and one question that are very, very interesting, and it seems to be from different community members. One that has been following our project for a long time now, and another one that's maybe new to it. So I would like just quickly read through them, and maybe we can provide quick questions to them. What do you think, Rob?
Let's do it, Angie.
Awesome. Okay, so it says, you guys have delivered so much in 2020, and I think business development efforts will make the coming years really exciting. When will the roadmap be updated to show what's ahead on the project in 2021?
Okay, such a great question. I don't have a specific time, but I think it's a great reminder to kick us in the butt and actually get the roadmap started. So yeah, we'll do that. Thank you for the question, and we'll take it and actually action that.
Awesome. Okay, and the last one, it says, I'm scared to do the node thing. When I use one of your recommendations, my cent can't be taken from my wallet.
If this person is referring to operating a secure supernode, they should never work with anyone that says that they need their Zen. So Zen is never, your Zen and your private keys should never be sent to anyone else. All you should do is actually register for one of these third-party service providers. And we do have a list of those that are there in the community. We don't vet them in the sense that we validate who they are and how they're operating, but we at least have a list for people to check out and talk to the community members as well. So if you're interested in running a secure supernode, join. Obviously, you're here on Discord, so talk to others on Discord here and do it publicly so that we can see what's going on. And if someone tries to steer you the wrong way, we'll definitely intervene. And it's something where, again, you should never send your Zen or share your private keys with anyone ever.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess that's it. Those were the top 5 questions. Thank you everyone for attending our Weekly Insider. Remember, we're going to be doing this every Monday at 3:30 p.m. UTC on Discord and YouTube to give you the latest updates. Have a great week. Have a great week. See you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. This is fantastic.
Bye, everyone.
Great, guys. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.